There we go.
Right, there we go. Welcome everyone to this month's chapter check-in, also a celebration of Black History Month. My name is Sandra Del Rio, Professional Programs Coordinator. Fred, introduce yourself real quick.
I'm Fred, Diversity Program Manager at ESA.
Awesome. And so today we have a panel discussion. Joining us, we have Matthew McCary, Dr. Matthew McCary, chair of the ESA's Black Ecologists section and faculty at Rice University. We have Kwanza Johnson, a Seeds alum, and employed at the Academic Programs Office at the Northeast Fisheries Science Center in Woodhulls, Massachusetts. Did I get the state correct?
Yeah, you got the state correct.
I was going to say it's Maine or okay, Massachusetts. And Warren Sconiers, Dr. Warren, Seeds alum and faculty at the University of Colorado at Boulder. And our moderator today is Kyle Reid, a PhD candidate and past Seeds fellow. So you'll be hearing from them. And before I hand it over to Kyle, our moderator this afternoon, I want to welcome you and I added a couple of some suggestions and rules so that this panel discussion is, helpful for everyone. This panel discussion is to share thoughts for our panelists to share thoughts on being a minority in science and how can professional societies like ESA and programs like Seeds better serve those from underrepresented cultures in science. If you have questions, which we do encourage, we ask you to please use the raise your hand up button, and please keep your microphones muted so we can listen to our panelists and their discussions, and we will call upon you again once you raise your hand, and we have a chance for some Q&A. And you are welcome to post comments again in the chat box at any time. We'll be checking on those. And then again, this event will be recorded. So with that, I hand it over to Kyle.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sandra. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I see we got a couple people still pouring into the participant section down there. I'm happy to have you all here. This is my first time doing something like this for Seeds, even though I've been involved with Seeds for a very long time. And I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to introduce you to some awesome people. Some I've known for quite a while, some I've met more recently, and some I still haven't had the chance to meet. So let's go ahead and just start with the introduction so you know the people we have up here. For me, the order is Kwanza, then Warren, then Matt. So I'm going to keep it in that, just keep it simple going through this thing. Sorry, Kwanza, you're up first. Yeah, the first thing, I just be a basic introduction. Try to keep it under 5 minutes. I'll yell at you if you go over. And if you don't know what to say about yourself, we're just really interested in who you are, whatever you want to say, where you came from, what organizations you're with, or where you work out of. However you identify yourself and how you'd like the audience to, know you as. Kwanza, you're up first.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Kyle, and thank you everybody for joining us. Again, my name is Kwanza Johnson, and I am the Academic Programs Coordinator for NOAA, the Northeast Fisheries Science Center, based out of Woods Hole. I'm sitting right now in Tallahassee, Florida. So due to the pandemic and, some life things, I literally came down here and have not had to relocate due to the pandemic. So I myself sit in Tallahassee, Florida at this current moment. A little bit about myself. So I think I'll start my story just with my introduction to Seeds. So I came to the Seeds Kuwaita Research Laboratory, or LTER, field trip as a recent graduate, and joined a cohort of students who kind of reflect us. They come from a lot of different backgrounds, really interesting majors and universities. And so I was a part of another society that referred me to Seeds. And so just learning about ESA now, not only as a recent grad, but now as a professional, has been a really big part, I think, of my career. So just a little bit more professionally that I've done. So I started off at an HBCU. I was an undergraduate. I finished with my degree in environmental science. I went on to participate in a internship, the Woods Hole Partnership Education Program, or PEP, that allowed me, 10 weeks on Cape Cod. And so it was a really, I would say, eye-opening experience as to, I'll tell you later on how that like plays into who I am now in my role now. But shortly after doing that internship, I began teaching earth space science down in Broward County, Florida. And so Broward is actually a suburb, or I'm sorry, it's the main county for Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So I really got, like I say, a strong push out of the nest from undergrad into the professional world, and what it's like to bring, complex science to the minds of students and kids who ask you why constantly, but being able to really take, these large concepts and explain it on a level that they can conceptualize and understand. So I think that was something that was really like a really interesting mind frame for me, and to also do it for a melting pot of students from diverse backgrounds, being able to, somehow relate to students who spoke, no English, or, a limited amount of English, talk about, the curveballs there. So after teaching, I later entered the government, and I did so through a program called Pathways. And so I worked completely out of my element. Then at the time, I was doing my master's work entirely online, but working during the day for the VA Medical Center in Cleveland, Ohio. So it was my introduction to the federal workforce and into, the world of program management and the behind the scenes of, funding and to appropriation of funds and just how the government works. And being what it may, as far as my network, I was then later contacted about my current position and invited to apply. So I think that that's really a big story, and sort of where you've been really sets you up for where you're going to go in the future, and really nurturing those networks and connections, not only with, your peers and your cohort members, but also with the staff who run your programs. It's really a big part of it. They keep you in mind. They remember you. They remember the work that you do. So I think that that's something that I'm a huge advocate for. And just in my most recent news, I am going to be exiting this position after 4 very interesting years. I work in the bubble of diversity and inclusion, and really bringing students into our pipelines, into NOAA, into our laboratories and with our scientists, but also trying to diversify those communities. And now I will be exiting and working with a nonprofit towards diversifying. I would say they more focus on, nonprofits, and on how to bring the racial wealth gap to an end. So it's a very new part of this diversity issue to battle and to work at. But I am up for the challenge, and I'm extremely excited. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to mute myself and let others share. But thank you all for joining.
That was awesome. And I'm sure like the points you're bringing up, the keeping connection with people, the awesome events, and the going out in the field that we get to do, and how that's going to, gives you a chance to build up. Thank you for sharing all that. I got shuffled around, but I think, Matt, I said you were going to be next, right? Nope, I didn't. Okay. Then Warren, there you go. Sorry, I moved us around when we made Kwanza the spotlight. There you go.
No problem. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see some faces here today. So a little bit about me. So I'm currently a teaching associate professor at Colorado UC Boulder, and I just started in January. So just sort of changed positions. So to go back for me, get started, during my undergraduate at University of California, Irvine is when I got started with seeds. And during this time, I was a plant physiologist. I would look at how plants change based on their landscapes and the climate, and how they could invade different ecosystems. And so at this time, I worked with Catherine Suding, who's now at Boulder. And while I was in Irvine, I functioned as a lab technician as well, and also just a undergraduate researcher. I also did a research experience for undergraduates, also at Boulder during the summer of 2007. And through that experience, and Katie introduced me to seeds. And so she introduced me to the Ecological Society of America, to seeds, and that's when I got my first start. So I applied for a travel grant and attended my first conference. I believe it was in Wisconsin, Minnesota, one of those two. And that's when I met Fred and met Teresa, met everybody, and got sort of going into the seeds program. From there, I also attended a Santa Barbara field trip to a research station out in Santa Barbara, and got some hands-on experiences with some research and met some people there. And from there, from that conference, so that first conference I went to, the first Ecological Society of America conference, because of seeds, I also met potential PhD advisors for my dissertation and my PhD. So from there, I met some prospective people at Texas A&M, and then from there I went to Texas A&M for my PhD in entomology. And so I can say that seeds was definitely a jumping point for me, for getting me into the system, meeting people, networking, getting contacts together. And it was also very nice to see different people who are interested in ecology and research, and who looked like me, and people who I could find and talk to, network with, and keep in touch with. So that was also very nice. And so after I got to Texas A&M, I was working on insect community response to drought of cotton plants, and worked in that area looking at plant physiology, but also insect communities diversity. And after that, I went to North Carolina State University, where I started a seeds chapter there. I'm not sure if it's still there today, but it was there when I was there. And we were working on community outreach mostly, getting out to classrooms and meeting young kids and showing them about ecology and insects, and took the students on a few trips. Also, we went to the Coweta research station out in the LTR station out in North Carolina as well. And we also worked on vermicomposting, got some community gardens set up out in some areas outside of Raleigh to get more food out to people and get some people a chance to do things after school. And afterwards, I went to the University of the Ozarks as assistant professor of biology for 5 years. And during that time, I tried to start a seeds chapter there. We were sort of going back and forth about how to get that funded and going. But the main students who were the drivers of that organization all graduated and didn't quite work out. But after that, I was there for 5 years, and then just started in January here at Boulder. And my position here is primarily teaching, but also I have part of my duties going to be research in the summer, being up at the Mountain Research Station up past Boulder, and looking at insect community response to climate changes over time in the alpine and about 11,000 or so feet. Also, part of my summer position is getting more undergraduates up at the research station. So the idea is that there's plenty of graduate students up there and faculty. And so part of my position is outreach and inclusion and diversity to get more students retained in these fields and STEM fields, but also to get more of these undergraduate students up into the mountains, hands-on experiences, get them sort of realizing what they can do in ecology and their research interests, get them outside, get them acclimating to the high mountain altitude, and get them sort of started up there. So yeah, I think that's about 5 minutes. I think that's me.
You had one more, but I mean, we're going to get to all the stuff. Okay. And again, thank you for that. Matt, ready to close us out on the introductions?
Yeah, I'm usually pretty short-winded, so I'll probably
wonderful.
Kind of give a brief background to who I am, but it's great to see you all, and thanks again for the invitation. I think this is awesome to get a chance to interact with the seeds program. Me now being the chair of the Black Ecologists section of ESA, I definitely want to partner with seeds as much as I can and make myself available and as a resource, and hopefully we can recruit some undergrads into some of the I guess top-notch sort of universities we're associated with, me and my leadership team for the Black Ecology section. A little bit about me. So I'm originally from Chicago, and came from like a predominantly African-American neighborhood. And so my journey into ecology started actually at the undergraduate level. I didn't really know what ecology was until I got to college and went to a small liberal arts school called North Central College, predominantly white, 45 minutes west of Chicago, and a very conservative campus. And so I definitely remember, my first year in undergrad thinking this was a really tough transition for me. because it was just overwhelmingly white. But what was nice about it, I did have a faculty mentor that saw the potential in me and sought me out to kind of do some summer research opportunities studying tiger salamanders and how fast they metamorphose depending on the sort of environmental conditions such as crowding and how much water is available. And so that was like my first sort of real experience with ecology. And what was really cool about it is that as a part of that sort of study at the beginning of the summer, we actually had to go out to a local pond, went out there and we started collecting like tadpoles of salamanders, and I felt like the crocodile hunter going out with this large net and getting all muddy, like mud everywhere in your eyes and your fingernails. And I felt like that was so much fun. And I couldn't believe that people actually got paid for that. So so my freshman year in undergrad is what really got me into ecology. And then fast forward 2 years, I was able to do an internship for the EPA. And that's what really solidified my interest in ecology at that point, because I couldn't believe that the scientists for the EPA had an opportunity to actually do field research, lab research, and the fun to go along with that. And they made pretty decent money to me. This was out in Oregon. And so unfortunately, as an undergrad, you know, I didn't get a chance to interact with seeds. I didn't even know seeds existed until I was a graduate student. Just the nature of the type of institution that I went to, they just didn't really reach out to these type of programs. And I think I still resent that. I mean, academically, I felt challenged and it was great for me there. But in terms of socially, I felt like I never did really immerse myself into that type of institution. And it just never really felt like home. And in fact, as an undergrad, I went home just about every weekend. And so I felt like I was kind of robbed of an experience. But fast forward to sort of going into grad school, Cal, I don't know if you know this, but I actually got my PhD from the University of Illinois, Chicago, where you're currently at. And so I went straight from undergrad to UIC, and I studied there the impacts of invasive plants on leaf litter food webs. I did a range of studies in the Chicagoland area. One that I liked the most was studying garlic mustard, which is this very nasty plant that can actually create, where it secretes these toxic chemicals in the soil. And I was studying how this particular plant can change the food web structure. So looking at the invertebrates and microbes. And that was kind of the basis of my PhD research. And then I went on and got a National Science Foundation postdoctoral fellowship to study at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And then I ended up at Yale for 1 year Forest Foundation fellowship that then set me up to take this position now where I'm at, which is an assistant professor at Rice University. And I've been here for about a year now. And so, yeah, this has certainly been a lot along the way. But now, as I said before, as the chair of the Black Ecologists section, I want to make myself available to the SEEDS program. I think it's fantastic what you all do. And I think there's so much potential that is there. And I'm hoping to even recruit these students to end up in my lab. And actually what's really nice about this is that a few years back, one of my very first times at the ESA meeting, this is back in 2017, I signed on to be a sort of conference mentor for the SEEDS program. And I got paired with one of Modeling Celestin. She was a part of the program. And I was just absolutely amazed. I think she was brilliant and was very excited. And at the time I was a postdoc. And, you know, I told myself if I ever had a chance to recruit her as a faculty member, I was certainly going to make my pitch. So come last year when I was recruiting for my lab, I reached out to Moline and she was certainly looking for graduate programs. And she applied and now she's one of my first grad students. And so I think that's kind of a testament to the SEEDS program because she's fantastic. And it just kind of solidified my sort of thoughts about why I think SEEDS is important and why I would like to continue to interact with them as much as I can. With that being said, that's kind of a brief introduction to who I am. But yeah, this is good to have these conversations.
It absolutely is. And man, thank you for hitting the transition so hard, because we're right about to move into like, what is the good that has come out of your career? You know, when Fred sent me this, the pitch was, a celebration of Black History Month. And I was thinking like, man, where do I know Matt from? And that's, oh yeah, that's right. I had to use your stuff in David Wise's class. He basically used your entire PhD to teach us meta-analysis. So now I'm learning from someone I'm moderating. It's crazy. But yeah, just like on the how that this is a celebration. This is supposed to be like that, Black success in the sciences and at ESA and at Seeds, and we've all come out of the situation. We've all managed to grow somewhat. Kwanza, you're back on top again, and you get to lead us in our discussion of, what have been some of your positives, some of your celebrations, what keeps you in the field, and what's been going well for you.
Right. That's a great question. I feel like I definitely am a jack of all trades. I would say just my I'll start with one of your questions of just, how did you get here against challenges, persistence, going through just, from undergrad, especially from a very small HBCU in Florida, we had our challenges, just stacked against us. One thing I will say is that I had a very small laboratory environment. And so for me, just my natural curiosity and ambition is really what I think set me apart early on, away from my, maybe my peers or classmates, in that my PI allowed me to pretty much take on and lead a project that was, for a master's student who ended up leaving. So for me, it was just I think just my innate character to just always ask questions and to just kind of keep going. The challenges that I would say that maybe I started to see once I left an HBCU was sort of, that there are glass ceilings for, Black people in science, or, whomever in science. And so those kind of things are just, necessary. You're cognizant of racism and of that we live in a society that has these racial barriers. However, you don't really see that. I think for me, it's very hard to hide in plain sight. So like applying with an HBCU that I listed, I have a degree from, that's something I think is a name that people don't often recognize. And two, my name, kind of seeing things like that on resumes and things like that, you just naturally start to learn and see patterns in what you're trying to do. So I would say that those challenges are sort of just like naturally fell in front of me. But I think with persistence and, really keen networking and just not being afraid to be like your authentic self, if you're interested in studying something or in pursuing a certain program or expertise, go for it. Don't let people deter you. Get your experience, talk to people, and really be present in what you're doing. I would say the strengths that I learned about myself, I think, definitely just being persistent, and definitely just not being afraid to apply, even if you feel like you might be a fish out of water. I'm not sure the demographics of everyone here, like where you are in your careers, but even now, being several years out of college, you still have that some of that hesitation at times to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid. Keep pushing. Keep going for it. And who did I specific? I know I'm like reading from your cheat sheet, Kyle, but I just want to make sure I kind of speak to each of these. But who did I lean on? I think one thing that's very important, I think, is mentorship. And making sure that you surround yourself with mentors and peers who are supportive of you and supportive of what you are very passionate about. I remember one time, so during my graduate school experience, I had a very good friend of mine, send me a NOAA internship, and it was something that it was up my alley. I was very interested, or I was doing a GIS master's degree, and so my background was more so with just remote sensing. Like I love satellites, I love looking at sonar and other things. And so that particular internship might have been one that I shied away from, but he was like, I think you should really apply. You seem like a great match for this. And so I heard him out. I applied. It was one of the best experiences of my life, like was to be on a NOAA vessel for 2 weeks in the middle of the ocean and going through the Channel Islands in California. It was incredible. It was, it was absolutely amazing. So I think those types of things, just having that tribe of people who kind of look out for you, have similar, just the same type of drive that you do is really big. And so that's been a huge part of who I am, and also my family. I'm very, very, very blessed to have a very supportive family, and a strong nucleus. And so, okay, what are my wins that I'm celebrating? I really want to see Seeds continue. I too did not have the direct undergraduate like chaptering at my university. I think they had it, but it by the time I was coming through had already sort of dried up, unfortunately. And something I can do to sort of give back is maybe help them reestablish it in some way, like be the bantering alumni to kind of get them into bringing that seed chat, like bring it back. And so, because all of these experiences really do matter for students, and they need that. So that's something I could definitely do to help, and do my part and reach back. I just want to celebrate the fact that people can be themselves in science, and I don't see that as often as I would like, but I am glad to see that Seeds is supportive of that. ESA is, and I kind of work on the hub for Ecology Plus for the DC area. So for me, I am just celebrating the fact that we are able to do these things in these spaces in this time. And our ancestors have done so much to really alleviate a lot of those issues, that otherwise even other people wouldn't have had opportunities to do so. So that's what I am directly celebrating. I wish it could be, something more grandiose than that, but really it's the small victories that matter for me. So that's how I would wrap that up, Kyle.
Oh no, that was perfect. I mean, to tag back something else said, I had to be the black crocodile hunter for my community because that was the only way people I was talking to understood what I was trying to do with my career. And now that didn't exist when we were a kid. Now we have a room full of people that look like us, that have been through what we're doing, and are trying to help each other get to that position where we can be on a boat, where we can be out on the islands, where we can be doing whatever, because science is out there. It's just not enough black folk in it, sadly. Thank you so much for that.
No
all right, Warren, I got it right this time, man. You're up next on the positives. What's your victories, man?
Yeah, several things I wanted to highlight. One thing I learned about myself is the ability to put go hit the grind and just get it done. There was a lot of times where, it'd be late at night and I still wanted to keep going in order to finish. So in particular, I'm talking about my dissertation. There's a lot of field hours. I was in the field, 5-6 days a week, and from 10 to 3, and then going back to the lab and crunching data and putting things together. And one of the biggest things was when it came time to write and to get things together, I was able to push in ways I didn't know I could do. And that was also because of some of the peers in my lab. So having a good peer network and group of peers to work with was very helpful, because they were with me, next to me in the lab, also writing, also grinding, also getting things done. And it was really good to see that support. It wasn't just me in the lab. It'd be very different if it would have been just me in the lab, but there's other people in the lab, going to 8-9 o'clock at night. There's still people in the lab getting things done. And I think that was very beneficial. I think that was a very strong support system for me when I was going through my dissertation. And going back a little bit too, ever since I first started becoming interested in insects and ecology, there were just fewer people who looked like me in those classes, who were on those kind of projects, who were just around. At Texas A&M, there were only, it was a department, it's one of the largest entomology departments. And there was, 40 something faculty. There were only one other African American. Actually, he was African in the department as a professor, as a veterinary entomologist. And as far as students, there are only a handful of students who look like me as well, despite having almost 100 or so graduate students in the program. And that's just how it was. And you start to look for other ways to connect with people, to still get that support system, besides how they look and where they came from. And that was sort of my journey in that, is that I need to find other ways to connect with people as well. And there were some of the people who were minorities I connected with, and shared similar backgrounds and histories with. There was also some people as well who weren't minorities, and they just connected and were able to still get connect in ways. And I also had a pretty supportive department. Texas A&M had a very supportive department as far as just lots of programs, lots of ways. There was a Black Graduate Student Association, which provided a lot of support systems for me. It was a good way to socialize and just spend time and share stories and vent about graduate student life. That wasn't always possible with my immediate cohort in my lab. So I also was reaching out to those groups as well, and continuing to go to ESA and to the NSOC, the Entomology Society of America meetings, and meeting people through there, and sort of establishing a network to bounce ideas off of people and to just chat and spend time with. I think I kind of mixed those questions up together, but some of the people I've leaned on were some of the people I've met in the Graduate Student Association, different organizations I found. We did outreach together. We would just go and put things together for kids in different schools. So it was nice to be productive community members as well by being a group of Black graduate students going to different schools and showing students that you can look like us and then be getting PhDs and be getting making progress in advanced degrees. And I think some of the biggest things we were communicating was just the fact that you can do that. I think a lot of students or younger students just don't know that that's possible. My father was a big example for me. He has a PhD in nutrition, and at a young age, I knew that was possible, and it was an automatic standard for me that was how far I could see education going. It wasn't going to college; it was further than that. And so I was blessed in that way to have an automatic sort of model to follow since I was a child, and know that was where I could go. And some of the biggest things I wanted to communicate to students over time was just that, just to show them that there's examples out there and you can be one of those people. And it's interesting seeing the kids light up in particular when they see me holding a box of insects and that, you can like insects and that's cool. And you can do things with insects and that's just fine. It's not some gross hobby. You can actually get paid and get a degree looking at bugs all the time. And that was something that I wanted to communicate to the students, that you can have a passion in something and go for it. Just go for it. Doesn't matter who, yes, it's nice to have examples of people who look like you, but at the same time, just do it anyway. You want it, get it, and find some support systems along the way and do it. And so that was something I've learned during my time, and the importance of reaching out to other people and showing them examples, and that all that support system sort of helped me find my way and push myself forward.
Thank you so much for that. I don't know, this is mostly going to go to undergrads probably, and a PhD can be like the most social, interacting, I'm free to be myself process in the world, or it could be the most locked in a room, don't get on the outside as, just misery. So it can be good. It can be this wonderful social thing. And if you help build that, you help bring that energy, you got a lot of potential. Matt, ready to wrap us up on the positives?
Yeah. Well, I certainly have endured a number of challenges to kind of get to where I'm at right now. But I think that, to echo Warren and Kwanza, I think that part of what I was able to do is to just be authentically me and think about who I want to be and think about what my true interests were. And like me growing up as a kid, I always had like a natural inclination for science and particularly just being outdoors. And at the time, I didn't know that ecology was a field, but I definitely, the moment that I had my first taste, it was something that I definitely had a passion for. And so despite all the different challenges that arose, like particularly being like the only Black in just about every class I had at the undergrad level, even when I entered UIC, I remember the first day, one of the administrators said I was the first Black male that entered that program in like the last decade. And I remember thinking, wow, this is a place that, a lot of Blacks who look like me don't actually attend. I'm very excited to see that the trends are changing now. I mean, it's still got a long way to go, but certainly there's more color and more people who look like me who are actually doing ecology. So I think that, people should just be honest about what their interests are. If you have a true interest in ecology and the sort of the work that comes along with that, like you should pursue that, And I think that oftentimes, we kind of hear some of these other more glorious careers in science that, people want to pursue, and ecology kind of gets thought of as like maybe, it's not for me, or it just, you don't know a lot of people doing it, but it could be a very fun career. And depending on where you at, I mean, you know, you can still make really decent money as well. And so I think, you know, when I recognized that this was an interest that I really had, I think I just kind of went for it. And, you know, I can honestly say it's worked out for me. And it's something that I still can't believe that this is my job. Like, I really do feel like some days it's just so much fun to be involved in this. And I feel like there's just so much more potential that I could bring to the table as well because of that. In terms of who did I lean on, I mean, I definitely had like a family structure. My mom, she was a big supporter, and even my father when they were around. And just having, you know, they had no idea what the PhD was. They definitely gave me the sort of support, the emotional support that I needed, and just told me that the sky's the limit. And so don't limit myself, regardless if, you know, you enter in spaces that you don't see anybody who look like you. The potential is there. You just have to act on it, and, you know, just kind of be true to yourself. Right now, the wins in ecology, I mean, I am just really excited about just the fact that people are really recognizing why diversity really matters, and particularly in ecology. I think, unfortunately, this kind of stems mostly from, you know, George Floyd and what happened back in, you know, 2020. And I think there's been more interest in really trying to develop more diversity, equity, and inclusion in the field of ecology and related disciplines, and just seeing the motivation now to really put in programs in place to really change the narrative is very exciting, because, as I said before, it's something that I have to face as a undergrad, as a grad student, as a postdoc, but seeing that there now is a legitimate interest in really making our field very diverse, which is extremely important from environmental justice perspective, but just being reflective of broader society. And I think that's something that I'm very excited for.
Thank you so much, Matt. Entirely accurate. One thing I've got to bring up, though, is I move on to the next section, which is the bad. And I don't want to call it the bad, because it's not the bad. These are the challenges that come with any job or any responsibility, anything where you put yourself out there to interact with people. But, like, you know, we never believed we'd have this job, but this is still a job, and there are some requirements. Kwanza, you mentioned earlier, you have to have persistence. Well, persistence through what? Persistence through what kind of challenges? And, you know, what are you trying to get through? And I think it would just be really useful for the undergraduate students to hear your guys' perspective on what challenges you needed that persistence to get through, what challenges you didn't expect. And I remember that our generation was the first one that grew up knowing we would deal with imposter syndrome, knowing we were going to deal with these problems, and we still walked into it and got slapped in the face. So now, you know, coming out the other side as a professional, what are some of the challenges that you dealt with? What are some of the bad aspects that you can help prepare our future generations for? Kwanza, you're up.
Right. Yeah. Another set of great questions, Kyle. So what challenges did I not see coming? I would say I definitely had heard, you know, kind of just being like a really focused high school student, you know, higher you go, the thinner the air, you know, ultimately meaning, you know, there's less wiggle room for you to, you know, slack off or to even really mess up in a way, especially when you're, you know, from communities that are Black and brown. So it becomes extremely demanding, getting up that mountain, that metaphorical mountain, into whatever it is that, you know, you wanted to do. And for me, I would say that while, you know, it certainly, you know, the higher you go, the thinner the air. I was not anticipating, again, at first, sort of the, you know, it gets lonely sitting up at the top. Like, literally, you don't see enough of, and I know this has been something said, you know, by Matt and Warren also, that, you know, you just see less and less of people who look like you doing your science, or doing, you know, even I, you know, as a program manager, see less people who look like me. How, you know, and you think, how can that be if, you know, you're in an agency that represents, you know, an entire region of our nation? How can there be, you know, you count on one hand how many colleagues that, you know, you may look like or have something very similar, you know, backgrounds too. So for me, I think that was a huge surprise. I was expecting, you know, there to be a lot more, you know, strides that have been made. But I think in doing that, I probably wouldn't be in the role that I'm in had we have, you know, have come that far in progress, unfortunately. But I think that too, it kind of pours into this next part of sort of the barriers. And so barriers for younger students, I think because I work right at the cusp of that, the biggest barrier that I personally, I see a lot of them, but I would say one of the biggest is that there is a lack of equity and excellence. And what I mean by that when I say that is that pretty much, in order for, a student to be seen as exceptional or as excellent, and especially being from a community like Woods Hole that has had a lot of, breakthrough with scientific discoveries, but at the same time has had a very profound history of exclusion for African Americans or Black scientists or scientists of color. It is very unfair a lot of times in who they deem as being excellent and what that looks like. It looks like a certain background, it looks like a certain skin tone, it looks like a certain sort of behavior, and none of those factors are really true when it comes to someone's potential and their interest and drive, especially when you see it, when students apply for example, our internships or for certain, job opportunities. Just because they haven't, gone to XYZ school or know XYZ mentor does not mean that they are lesser than. And so I think that that's something that is really, really difficult because it brings in, unconscious bias and so many other, branches into like the psychological side of why we're seeing, less representation in STEM. And so for me, that is it's a well-developed barrier for our younger students. But another that I always like to talk about is sort of the STEM education element. And that's that, we have many school districts across this country who, receive really no support, financially in the first place. And that our students, if they can't, read, there's no way a lot of them can even, they're frustrated to the point where they don't want to read about, whatever science you may be putting in front of them. And it's like another language, like literally the science that, the words we use in science become, it's like speaking an entirely new language. And so I think that, in order for us to really see that influx later down the line and later into their academic careers, is we've got to catch them earlier in STEM, and we've got to make a lot of reforms to just general education if we want those kids to be successful. So I think that it's something that really it's a huge barrier, and if I could, I would love to continue to work and chip away at it, because it always kind of keeps coming to the forefront. And just to touch on your last 2 points of, how do I keep my morale up? I would say that again, I think it's a part of that village. It's doing things like this that puts me in front of like-minded individuals or people who have gone through these barriers, but they came out, and I think Matt and Warren, both of them being not teachers, professors, that's a huge, plus right there. You do not see many Black men who are science professors. So that is, and I can say that even after being on an HBCU campus, so it's something I think that you just revel with. And it really does something for you, at least for me, to see that, and to also keep helping students, keep helping them, climb and to make their way. I tell them so many times, use me as a reference. If you need a letter, I won't write you a good letter. I'll write you a great letter, a stellar letter. As long as you put the work and the effort in, I'll let me be your cheerleader. So I think for me, that's an awesome way to keep my morale high, is really being around like-minded individuals. And lastly, work-life balance. I don't have a choice. I do have to balance my work and my life, working so very far from my home office in Woods Hole all the way down here in Tallahassee. I have a 2-year-old who only knows me working from home. So it is always a constant, balance for me. But I definitely I'm proud to say I'm doing very well. And again, I have my support system. So it just comes, I take it day to day. But yeah, that is exactly how I would describe my work-life balance. These are great questions, by the way, Kyle. I really like them.
Hey, Fred, you hear that? I need a job. I was going to say earlier when you were talking, like, how do we get them earlier? Like, what's earlier than seeds? Because I don't know what's earlier than seed, like a pod, a fruit, whatever we got to start, we got to get that started out, because that will help out some 8th graders go count bugs. Warren, you are up next.
Yeah, a few things I want to touch on. One of the challenges I didn't see coming was just the degree of representation there is, being one of the few or the only in a lot of these cases. There's been people I've met where I've been literally the only Black person they ever met in person before. So there's things like that. And then there's people who just have no experience about what it's like at all. And I'm not, assuming people would, but same time there's that. So some of my own choices ended up reflecting on almost my entire race because of me being the only one that they've met. And there's a lot of pressure in that, a lot of pressure in, being the representative. But then there's moments where, this is my chance to show people, that stereotypes can be wrong and that they, this is it. So there's those points too, where you sort of just step up and then just do what you can. But at the end of the day, you're still a person. So you show that side too. And you sort of move forward from there. So that was a challenge that I didn't really see coming, and sort of tried to take in stride. As far as morale and younger students, I think starting before the C is formed, going before 8th grade, having students see examples of people who look like them. I think at a younger age, that's really enough. I think it's a great start. And then having reforms that help students get books and not have to worry about food and things like that distract them away from their passions in education. For how I keep my morale up, I try to remind myself why I enjoy what I'm doing, like why I chose this career path, the job. Sometimes I'll sit there and just look at some bugs and it's like everything's okay again. Or sometimes there'll be moments where I just need to really sit down and say, why am I here? What brought me here? And thinking about the joyful moments of my life that have brought me to this point. When I get flooded with student emails, I teach 480 students in this class. When I get all these emails, it's like, yes, I've said these things over and over again, and they're still asking for that information. But, I step away and say, hey, okay, I like bugs. I like talking about biology, ecology. This is why I'm here. And then I continue. So there's moments like that. And for work-life balance, it's sort of without a choice. You kind of just need it. You need to find a way to step back and say, hey, what do I need to feel better? What's going to keep me refreshed? Planning time to just not do anything. Yes, there's always work to do, but take a second to just block out some time and say, hey, I'm going to do nothing this day or part of the day, or I'm going to take a break in the middle of this work day to go do something I enjoy and then come back. And then taking the time to reflect upon yourself and to think about who you are and what you enjoy, and then just incorporating that, because in the long run, if you don't, it's going to slow you down. It's going to make what you've committed yourself to doing less enjoyable, and no one wants that. Society and the people who need you at your best don't want that either. So making sure that's part of your lifestyle is sort of the way to go with that. For the sake of time, I think I'll end there, but yeah, I just want to touch on those few points.
I was going to say, I think we all heard when we got started out in the PhD process, like, oh, by the end of it, you're going to hate what you study. And I'm like, you did it wrong. I don't know what happened to you, but I don't think you were doing it right. We were supposed to like this career. Matt, you want to wrap us up on this one?
Yeah, and I'll be brief because I'd like to engage with the undergrads here. But yeah, actually, one of the challenges I didn't see coming, I know this may sound a little strange, but I kind of always been an introvert. And so part of the reason why I got into the field of science, because I didn't want to have a career where I had to kind of be face-to-face with people all day, every day. And so I was under the impression that science is the way to go. And so, but when I started, undergrad and then going into grad school, I realized you have to interact with people a lot. And I was kind of surprised by that. So I had to kind of really develop my people skills, because it was something that I really didn't anticipate needing to do. And it's actually very important to be able to communicate your interests and just get along with colleagues, regardless of what background they may have. And it's something that I had to certainly develop, but it's certainly something that I recognize I'm proud to say that I'm half decent at now. One of the things I would say for the morale, and I would echo, what was mentioned before, is that, I think that just seeing the impact, I think at the end of the day, like the research that I do, even if it may, not save the world or solve some of the problems we have, but just seeing the impact that of the work that I'm doing, it really what keeps my morale up and keeps me motivated to keep working, because I know that this is going to have an impact in some capacity, and seeing the potential for that is really, really fun. And the work-life balance, I think for me is just thinking, I kind of treat it like a 9 to 5. I think that you often hear people say when you become a scientist or when you become a professor, that's all you do every day is work. You work on weekends, and I'm like, well, you're doing it wrong. I think if you find how to be efficient, if it's something that you really enjoy doing, then you will find a way to have a really good work-life balance, not just try to view it as like a 9 to 5 when I'm in the office, 9 to 5 each day, Monday through Friday, and kind of work a standard work week. And that's been working for me so far. So with that being said, I'd like to get to the discussion.
Totally. I think that's a good lesson to pull it out on too, is that if you hear something from somebody that don't sound right, get a second opinion, especially from somebody that looks like you. All right, Fred, we do have 5 minutes left in the hour. I'm not sure if we wanted to reach over that too long. I'm not seeing too much as far as questions on my end. Fred, are you seeing anything on your end, or?
Chat, but we can open it up for discussion. So if anybody wants to ask any questions or comment to any of the panelists,
Let's go ahead and do that then. So if anybody has any questions or comments for the panel, again, thank you all for being here. I definitely appreciate it. And while those are coming in, do you mind if we switch to the other thing then of, other opportunities, what your next steps are, if there's opportunities for other students to join you in what you're doing? We can just go down the list one more time real quick. Kwanza?
Yeah, I would say that, and given the timeline here, our intern opportunities, NOAA has a ton that Fisheries offers. There is, again, the one that I'm an alum of is the Woods Hole Partnership Education Program, or PEP. There is also a newer program that myself and colleagues have founded only for the Fisheries Science Centers in the Northeast, which is an inclusive NOAA Fisheries Internship Program, or NFISH. I can put the links to all of this into the chat. But both are, paid internship programs. They support you for travel to and from. If we are in person, we've run them entirely virtual over the past 2 years, but would like to see our students come back and join us in the Northeast and, do perform their internships with us. I would say that, again, the timeline for one has closed, but the other is still, we're like 2 days from the deadline. I wish I could have sent this out sooner, but I would encourage anyone who is still in the pipeline. We do accept recent graduates, and we also take students who are freshmen into 2 of those programs. NOAA also has a scholarship program, the Ernest Everett Hollings Scholarship Program, which allows, if you pretty much develop a proposal and submit it as I believe in your sophomore year, they will pay for the last 2 years of your undergraduate time. Yeah, I know, right? Kyle, it's a program that we have had a hard time trying to, again, kind of bring down these barriers for diverse students. But I think the issue does start with communication. A lot of these communities just don't know about the opportunities, and students don't, know to apply. We also offer a similar program, which is our EPP, or Educational Partnership Program, that is run out of our headquarters and our education office as well. It differs from the Hollings Scholarship. It honestly is the same format, same scholarship. You also get an internship at a NOAA facility, except as an EPP student. Those are our students who come from minority serving institutions, and they actually get 2 summers with a opportunity to intern at a NOAA facility, and you finish with your final presentation at headquarters in Silver Spring. So I just wanted to throw those out there. I'll put links in the chat and give time for questions and for others to add.
Right now, we're just getting a lot of congratulations in the chat for this stuff. So Warren, any opportunities to work with you in the future, or any closing notes, any comments you want to give on the other guest?
I just want to say that our department, eBio at Boulder, is always looking for new students. One of the biggest things that I would like to talk more about is that during the summers, I'll be looking for students to come up to the Mountain Research Station for ecology research. Varying time frames from a week or just a visit up there to see what's up there to full RAU research internships for the summer. And those typically are all paid for, and you also get a stipend for those too. So those are things that we offer, and I'm personally going to be working on with students coming this summer. Yeah, I want to include ESA my goals, especially for events like this, and also for reaching out to students, getting students interested in hands-on research. And I think all it needs is just one trip. For me, my experience was one trip. That's all I need to get me on board, to get me meeting the people I need to meet, and to get me moving forward. So I offer those, and I'm also working with Teresa and Fred on the ESA, the LDC committee. So for planning the Learn Discovery Conference and working with ESA and some of the leadership. And so I'm definitely looking for more ways to reach out to students as well. And also for looking to retain students in STEM fields with trips such as ones I talked about, but also to the Mountain Research Station as well. So I'll leave it open for others to comment. I want to say those few things.
Awesome. Matthew, you're up.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, I'm a new assistant professor at Rice University, so I'm in the process of building up my lab and recruiting students for PhDs and masters. And so for those who are, interested in sort of plant soil feedbacks in the context of global change, certainly reach out if you, have an interest in a master's or PhD. I would love to have a conversation. I'm also hoping to be able to recruit some undergrads to do some summer research. We have a RAU program here at Rice, and so I can kind of point to some directions about how we can actually have some students apply through that program and potentially get an opportunity to work here at Rice over the summer. And as the Black Ecologists chair, there are a ton of sort of events that we plan to have at the ESA meeting in Montreal, and hope to get some seed students involved in that. And so, so right now, that's pretty much where I can see, I can engage with this community.
Man, if you'd have told me back when I was undergrad, like, hey, I could work at the deli, I could come to the mountains, or I could come out to Rice, or I could come out to do these kinds of things, that's how I get started. So I'm flabbergasted that 3 awesome people, that came out of the same programs as me are now in the positions to start offering life-changing experiences, and to be fair, like life-saving money to the folks who need it. So this is just, I can't, I'm just gonna be happy about that. Fred, I think we're a little bit past time. This is recorded, so I'm pretty sure we can put it online to wrap it all up.
Kyle, Asia has a question. She has her hand raised.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I have not, again, first time, come on now, I gotta learn. Asia, please.
Oh, no worries. I'm a grad student now, so a lot of these things I can't take advantage of, but I wish I knew about when I was an undergrad. And if you're looking to reach out to more students of colors, especially Black students, one organization I would recommend is the Jackie Robinson Foundation. It's like a scholarship foundation that I was a part of when I was an undergrad. And one thing I really noticed is they're really lacking. They give us information about internships, but they don't have a lot of information about science opportunities, especially ones that aren't pre-med related. So I can drop a link, but would highly recommend, or you can even just I can reach out if you want me to send an email to somebody through that organization. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Asia.
I was going to ask, we almost always end these things with a new work project at the end of it. So it looks like me and Fred are going to have to build up the official REU fellowship opportunities for seed students list or something like that.
We do. They're currently open, by the way.
The Spurs open?
Yeah.
So that if you listen to this video, that means you got 4 opportunities right there. Unbelievable value.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I believe we had a seed student in our first cohort for InFish last summer. She was from UC Davis. So, yep, Seeds has great connections to students. So that's wonderful.
checking to see if I see any more raised hands, but please go ahead, turn your video on, say something. Not, I want to be respectful to everyone's time. 5, 4,
Yes.
3. All right then.
We
Want to
have
get one last thank you for our guest?
Yes, thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Matt. Thank you so much, Kwanza and Marin. It's been an amazing panel. Not a lot of questions, but yeah, it's a shy group, but I think there was so much information shared. I definitely learned a lot. So thank you so much. And there are also more opportunities out there. So I'm just gonna share my screen real quick. I hope this type of conversations are helpful. Like if I was gonna ask a question to the panelists, how we can better support, students at the undergraduate level. But I also want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I will leave it as an open question that we can discuss, because I know that you are involved with SEEDS and ESA in one or the other. And yeah, so that would be my question for all of you. So some upcoming events that are happening are here in the screen. Ecology Plus is hosting their own panel with some Black students, and it will take place on February 17th, so tomorrow. I will share the PowerPoint with the SEEDS chapter, so you will have access to these links, but I can share that in the chat room, or Teresa can share that. Oh, great, thank you, Teresa. And we're gonna have also a career panel. Ecology Plus is having a career panel on February 24th, and it's around careers in environmental policy, advocacy, and law. So if you're interested in that career path, please attend this panel. And again, thank you and attention to the awardees. There any, please keep sending your updates around your programs. We love to know what you are doing with your grant awards. And once again, thank you so much to our panelists and to our moderator extraordinaire, Kyle. Well, with that, I say good evening.
Thank you, Sandra. And I wanted to say thank you to Kyle personally for helping me put this idea together, and to Warren, Matt, and Kwanza. Thank you so much for being members of our community, and I really do appreciate you sharing your stories with those students in SEEDS, and I look forward to seeing more of you at ESA. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Nice to meet you all.
Bye.
Good to see everybody again.